All right. Spine and thorax, chapter 4. Chapter 4, part 2. It's chapter 2. Bless you, chapter 2. God. Why do I like this? Okay, so. The spine and thorax muscle group number 2.
About what page is we starting on?
Of the book,
Yeah.
203 through 206.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. So we're talking about, these are in the cervical spine, the splenius capitis, the splenius cervicis, and the suboccipitals. These are super, super important muscles. Don't be slackers. Learn these. I think we did a little brief thing on these in the beginning of this chapter, but remember, capitis means it's going to actually connect onto the skull. Cervicis means it's connecting on the cervical spine. So those are the difference. So these are posterior neck muscles that unilaterally will rotate the head and neck in the same direction or laterally flex in the same direction. So if your right side of your splenius capitis or cervicis contract, it can rotate to the right side or laterally flex to the right side. So this would be a good group of muscles that would respond very well to muscle energy techniques. Bilaterally, so if they decide to work together, they extend the head and neck. So for capitis, splenius capitis, this originates on the inferior 1/2 ligamentum nuchae. So that means that ligament on the back of your skull, where your occipital ridge would be. And the spinous processes of C7 through T4. So see how they are neck muscles, but they also kind of go down into the upper thoracic as well. So if somebody has forward head posture, these muscles could be overstretched and weak. Cervicis, splenius cervicis. This originates on the spinous processes of T3 through 6. So again, look at this picture. All of them are kind of starting at the thoracic area and then extending up to either the skull or the cervical spine. So for capitis, we're going here and connecting on your skull, right? So this is going to be the masstoid process in the lateral portion of your superior neutral line, right there. And then here, oh God, every time I zoom, I do this. So here's your ligamentum nuchae. This ligament runs across those spinous processes and attaches at the base of your skull, that little notch that you feel if you were to feel the back of your head. Right. The insertion for cervicis would be your transverse process of C1 through 3. So this goes from thoracic, runs up, and then connects on the transverse, so the wings. Okie dokie, cool. I get this. Okay, got it all. Suboccipitals. This word means a bunch of the tiny little muscles below your occipital region. Your occiput, again, is this base of your skull. So we're going to go over 4 of the muscles that make up the suboccipital region. Now, when you're doing SOAP notes and you notice there's a lot of tension at the base of the skull and those muscles, you can put tightness in these suboccipitals. You don't have to put tightness in oblique capitis superior, right? You don't have to. So here is rectus capitis posterior major. We have a major, so that probably means we're going to have a minor. So these tiny, tiny little muscles are responsible for rocking and tilting your head into extension, saying yes. Is your neck tight? Yes. It also rotates on the same side. So in this picture here, this left rectus capitis, if it were to contract, it'll rotate on that same side. It originates on spinous process of C2. So this is way up way up on the neck, okay, into the base of the skull. And then it runs up and connects onto the neutral line of the occiput. So you have major, and here's minor. This guy's tiny, but it's doing the same thing. Again, it's the yes and no. So since it's so tiny, though, it's not really doing the rotation. So minor does minor actions, major does both of them. Same areas of attachments, except this goes to C1. Remember C1, just kind of hold your skull where it needs to be, just rocking out. Oblique. Also, I'm going to give you guys a little. So rectus. There's a muscle in your abdomen called the rectus abdominis. That is straight down the center. Then you have your obliques. Those are on the side. The same goes with these muscles, these suboccipitals. Your rectus are down the center. See? And here's oblique. It's off to the side. So the neck is kind of creating, pretend it's a abdominal region for this sake of explaining. All right, the oblique capitis superior. If there's a superior, there's probably a great chance there's an inferior, right? So this oblique capitis superior will again rock your head into a yes position. Laterally flex to the same side as well. So since it's now so far out, it's going to give you a tiny little flexion, lateral flexion. It originates on the transverse process of C1 or your atlas. Runs up and connects on the neutral line of the occiput. Inferior. So we're going to go back, look at the picture real quick. Superior is above. Inferior is below that. So this is just filling the space of C2. So this rotates to the same side. It originates on your spinous process of C2 and then connects to the transverse process of C1. So it's just filling that space up on that vertebrae. Moving on to the thorax. So we did some neck stuff. Now let's do some abdominal stuff. You guys know that I love these type of pictures.
What did you call that the other day?
I don't remember. Probably something slightly inappropriate. All right, so we're cutting this person in half, and this is the image we're looking at. So on the top is the anterior surface. So belly button is towards the top. The back is the booty. And here is the vertebrae, and then here's all your intestines. So that's what we're looking at here. So there's 4 muscles we're going to go over that are in the spine and thorax group 3. Do you guys remember him? This is your QL. This is the muscle that I had you guys palpate last week and try to release with fingers and elbows gently. So here's a better image of the quadratus lumborum. So the quadratus lumborum on one side unilaterally will laterally tilt or elevate the pelvis. This is why when this muscle is tight, it can bring your pelvis up higher towards your ribs, we'll say. It'll also laterally flex on the same side, but it also, here's a fun one, assists to extend the vertebral column. So that's unilaterally. So it's a lateral flexor. It tilts, elevates the pelvis, and it extends your spine. Bilaterally, so together, it'll fix the last rib during forced inhalation and exhalation. The origin, the posterior iliac crest. So we have not learned the hips yet, but the iliac crest is on that top. It's that top little bone part on your pelvis. So this originates here. That's why it would pull the hip up towards the head, we'll say. And then it runs across almost diagonally, and it inserts onto the last rib in the transverse process of lumbar 1 through 4. So when I'm having you guys try to palpate it at the spine, this is where we're starting at, okay, right through here. And then you're sinking in between these two spaces to try to get some of the belly of this QL muscle. The abdominals. So we have rectus, up and down, external oblique, internal oblique, and something called the transverse. Transverse is always going to be the cross section. Let's dive in deep. Rectus abdominis is your washboard ab look. Yeah! Hulk smash. The action of this is to flex your vertebral column and tilt your pelvis posterior. Most people have really, really, really poor abdominal and core strength. So we need to fix this in America. As I drink a fake pop. I'm trying. A for effort. 25 calories. That's great. All right, so the origin is the pubic crest and the pubic symphysis. Again, we haven't learned this yet. They should have put this in pelvis. But the pubic symphysis is this section right here. I should move it over.
Or over to the one with the ORI.
Right there. And the crest is right above it. So the pubic symphysis is where the two hip bones meet together. So it starts here, and its whole sheath runs up and connects onto the cartilage of the ribs and the xiphoid process. So see how it's connected all through here. When you do abdominal massages, it hurts all the way up, and it's great for you. But xiphoid process, and it also attaches at different ribs. And then this, see all this, all the ligaments here? So the fascia will be what is dividing those up.
So I'm just lacking fascia then.
We're lacking fascia in our rectus abdominis. That's why you can't see our washboard abs. The external obliques. So we have internal, which is in the body more. External is going to be more superficial. This is the side of your abs. So your best bet to strengthen this is to do side crunches. So unilaterally, by itself, it's going to laterally flex where you get your side crunch. It also will rotate. So if you want to really get into it, you can do a rotation. We should all just work out. We're changing the class to gym. Kinesiology and gym. Okay, so unilaterally, it'll rotate and laterally flex. So that's what that muscle is doing. And if you guys haven't already caught on, when you contract a muscle, that's what you're doing when you're exercising. If you want that specific muscle to be stronger and bigger, that is the action that you need to be doing, is what the action of the muscle is when it contracts. If you haven't quite caught on to that yet, but that's what we're doing here. So when you're in PT, if they're strengthening certain muscles, those are the muscles that are weak that they're trying to get strong. So bilaterally, if these two guys are working together, you're going to flex your spine and then also compresses your abdominal contents. So keeps everything in where it's supposed to be. Origin. The external surfaces of ribs 5 through 12 of the thorax. So these bad boys, I mean, obviously the ribs are in the thorax, but, and then it runs down diagonally to the anterior part of the iliac crest. So the crest, the anterior means the front part, and this connective sheath called the linea alba. The linea alba is pretty important for abdominal muscles. This guy. So we're going to go back, look at the picture real quick. External oblique. Internal. Woo, it's deep. So unilaterally, you guys are kind of noticing this pattern. If it's on the side here, it's probably going to flex and rotate, right? If one side is being contracted, if both sides are contracting, it's flexing your spine and compressing your abdominal contents. So the internal oblique originates on, we'll say, it's kind of like right along the edge of the iliac crest. So this is the lateral inguinal ligament. Inguinal means groin, the iliac crest, and something called the thoracolumbar fascia. This is actually, this fascia, it's back here. If you break down the word thorax, thoraco, usually there's O or A or something in between, lumbar. So this is connective tissue that connects the thoracic region with the lumbar region. There can be a lot of restrictions here. So a lot of the back muscles, towards the bottom, this is why we haven't done a lot of low back stuff yet, is actually this sheath, this thoracolumbar fascia. There's not a lot of muscle down there. It's mainly fascia. This is why when you have low back pain, the first thing I'm going to think of is working on your glutes. So when we do the pelvis, this is where we're getting our low back, in quotes, our low back work, where you guys cannot be afraid to work on somebody's glutes and also the backs of their legs. Play a role in this. Anyhow, rambling. So it originates here, right? And then it inserts onto the rectus sheath. Again, remember the linea alba, that is that sheath in the front. So we have our thoracolumbar fascia in the back and our linea alba in the front. So these are the connective tissue or the fascia that we're looking at. And then it, where am I at? It also connects onto the interior surface of the lower 3 ribs. So we're connecting here. It needs to connect to the ribs to help with breath work, breathing. Transverse. So this is also kind of filling that space where you think your QL would be on the side of your waist here. So these fibers are running transversely. So they're not running up and down or at an angle. They are kind of mostly going left to right, we'll say. So the action of this is to compress your abdominal contents. Keep everything where it's supposed to. The origin for this would be your lateral inguinal ligament. So in the groin, the iliac crest, thoracolumbar fascia, and your inner surface of the last 6 ribs. So this is kind of filling that little side space up deep in your body. And then guess where it inserts onto? The rectus sheath of the linea alba. Another linea alba attachment muscle. So this is also why when a woman has a C-section, especially back in the day, they have a longer time to heal because these structures are being cut, right? When you cut connective tissue and muscle, it's going to take a little while to repair. So be nice to the woman who just had a C-section. You're probably not going to be allowed to do any lifting for a while. Like, I know this is not being cut directly into this, but I'm going to have a couple incisions, tiny little ones, but I'm not allowed to lift over 10 pounds for 2 weeks. And that's just a very, very minor surgery. Now, cut somebody open and pull a baby out, that's a doozy, man. Or any abdominal surgery in general. The recovery, I imagine, is very painful. The diaphragm. Let's talk about this fun guy. The action of the diaphragm is to help you breathe. So it draws down the central tendon, draws down, where am I at? And it increases the volume of your lungs. So you take a deep breath in, and it allows for space, right? So it flattens when it contracts, allows for you to literally expand at a 360 degree, and then it'll shove back up, and everything will kind of depress. So diaphragm is used for breathing. Origin. The costal attachment, the inner surface of the lower ribs. Lumbar attachment would be the upper 2 or 3 lumbar vertebrae, and then the sternal or the sternum attachment point would be the inner part of the xiphoid process. So if you see here, it's just kind of all attached to those ribs here. And then it runs down and inserts onto something called the central tendon. Here's a picture of it. Really detailed, good stuff of how big that central tendon is inside of that diaphragm muscle. Almost done torturing you. I was going to say kiddos, but y'all are like adults here. All right, intercostals. Let's talk about the muscles in between the ribs. So you have external and internal intercostal muscles. Surprise! Woo! The external ones draw the ribs superior. This increases the space of the thoracic cavity to assist with inhalation. So your ribs are coming up to open up and give you more space to inhale. Those are your externals. Just think the external is pulling it away. The internal is pulling it back in. So internal will help with exhalation, right? In, exhale. Origin of the intercostals is your inferior border of the rib above it. Insertion is the superior border of the rib below. So literally, it's just, you guys have seen a slab of ribs before? That's what we're eating. Smoke that bad boy and put some Barbie sauce on it. I need to just start bringing weird meat with bones for us to cook on Wednesdays. Okay.
You remind me of that Ed Gein I was watching. I guess he was serving his neighbors some human meat. I don't know if anyone's watched it on Netflix yet.
No, that's like that Dahmer show.
Yeah. So
Really messed up.
I just love it so much.
He was like trying to get the neighbor to eat the sandwich. Ugh!
Yeah.
Messed up. Man, Dahmer was messed up.
I know. If you have Netflix, do the Ed Gein. It's 8 episodes.
Ed Gein.
Yeah. And it's like one of the
Gein might be worse.
OG.
Ed Gein might be worse.
He's worse.
I think he's worse.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of him because Dahmer got all the fame.
I know, and guess what? There's so many things that led up
Yeah.
to why people are the way they are, why movies came out because of this Ed Gein. He's like the OG of skin
In cannibalism.
No.
Listen, we're just gonna eat animals. I know we're animals, but listen, guys. If you're not vegetarian, I had a vegetarian last year. I felt bad talking about meat. But we're not eating humans. You hear me? Or anything close. I guess pigs are very closely related, but We're gross. All right, let's move on. We got like 4 slides left. Let's get it going.
I mean, if we start cutting people open, I mean, we can learn more about them.
We could. That's why we have a digital cadaver. All right, spine and thorax muscle group number 4. Let's do this, baby. Remember the serratus anterior? Guess what? There's a posterior, superior and inferior. So we're talking, this picture has both of them on here. So up here, this is what we're doing first, the superior. So this elevates your ribs during inhalation. So these muscles are going to be rib pullers for when you're breathing. They start on the spinous processes. This one's C7 through T3. And then it runs across those ribs and connects on the posterior surface of the 2nd through the 5th ribs. So remember the serratus anterior? I call it like the fingers around the ribs. Same thing. It's going to have that same shape. That's why it's called serratus, like a serrated knife. So it's going to have that same serrated appearance. All right, moving on. Here's the serratus posterior inferior. So superior is above, inferior is below. So this guy is going to, I'm going to go back. This guy elevates, so he's above, so he's expanding. This guy depresses, it's bringing the ribs back down, right, for exhalation. So one does the opposite. Originates on spinous process T12 through L3, runs across diagonally, and connects onto the posterior surface of your ribs 9 through 12. So it's even hanging out on a floater, a floating rib. Okay. This one's really hard to say. Don't judge me. Intertransversi, or seri, whatever you want to call it. So these are tiny, tiny little muscles that are literally in between all of the vertebrae. In between the transverse processes. So that's hence the name intertransversi. So on their own, unilaterally, it'll laterally flex that vertebrae to the same side. Together, it will extend. Okay, so these are on the back, or between the, transverse process, responsible for helping to keep you erect. Tiny, tiny little guys. So you have these intertransversi, between all of those, and then remember along the groove you have your rotatores and your multifidi. So those are all your spinal muscles. All right, so that's basically the origin insertion is just transverse process to transverse process. These are the interspinals or interspinalis. So these are connecting each spinous process. So you had the transverse, now we have the spinous. You have to have tiny little muscles in between those. Okay, so this again is going to extend your spine. And it's running attachment point to insertion along each spinous process. These, you're not going to be able to really massage very well. Your spinous process are kind of in the way. You don't want to really do a lot of pressure on the actual spine anyhow. So these little, we'll call them interspinals, are really, really good for myofascial release work. All right, so what we're doing is trying to manipulate the fascia so that it manipulates those tiny, tiny spinal muscles. All right, you guys got through the spine and thorax. Balla, shot, calla.